Right, well, good afternoon, and back again with the King's Road, a Chelsea FC show, all about the happenings at Chelsea Football Club, and it comes to you straight from the very tip of the African continent in Cape Town. My name is Nick Charlie Key. I'm one of your hosts, and as always, I've got my good friend and fellow Chelsea supporter, Sean Knockatt.
Hey, good to see you, Nick.
How are you doing today, Sean?
You doing well?
Yeah, good, bro. Awesome.
Pretty good.
Well, we've had a busy week. We've had last time we were chatting all about the new appointment, about Graham Potter coming in, the dismissal of Thomas Tuchel. Feels like an age since it happened. It feels like it's been months, but it's only been about a week and a bit.
Yeah, it does. My heart's still sore, but anyway.
Yo, my heart broke. Did you read Tuchel's his farewell letter?
I did, and I cried myself to sleep again. It was pretty sad.
Yeah. It's so funny. I actually legitimately couldn't read it for 2 days. I saw it there. I started reading. I was like, I actually can't. I'm
It's
too emotional. I've got to leave it. Got to wait for a time when I'm I've calmed down emotionally. So.
Yeah, I think the last time that happened was when John Terry left his farewell message on Instagram. I don't know if you remember that. That was the last time I felt like a dagger in the chest. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, it felt, I don't know if it's because it came, you could see the decline in Lampard's reign when he was manager. And obviously, being my personal hero of Chelsea, players and whatnot, it's still, the Tuchel one almost felt more harsh than that one, and you would expect, you've had so much more sort of relationship in a sense with a Lampard than with a Tuchel. Yeah. It's weird that the Tuchel one seemed to hit harder. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah. No, I mean, I honestly think Tuchel won over all the fans' hearts. Besides Rory Jennings, I think he's gone into everyone's hearts. And it was painful, man. It was the thing is, top coach, absolutely loved. He stuck by us in the hardest, most difficult period of Chelsea. And it just felt like a kick to the nuts, the timing of it all. But if you are listening to this and you want to get into all those details, we did chat about it last week. I'm not going to go on.
Yeah,
you can go check it out.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. He made a big impact on the club, and it's interesting. I saw you tweeted from our account, and I think it's something worth saying as well. I don't understand half of Chelsea Twitter, man. I don't know how you profess to support a club and yet always be so negative about everything.
Yeah.
There's where's the positivity? Where's the hope? We've all got to get behind. We can't change it now. We've got to get behind whatever your feelings are about Potter, about the team. You've got to get behind it. And in one of the big other the Chelsea podcast, I don't know if you listen to it, but one of the things that Andy Saunders always says, he says it's in the name. You're a supporter. You got to support the club. So get on with supporting and stop all the booing, stop all the naysaying on Twitter. It's unhelpful.
Yeah, Twitter is a deep, dark hole of just deep darkness. It's terrible. I can't stand it. But at the same time, it's as negative as it can be. It's actually a great place to get a bit of the finger on the pulse, I think, of where just Chelsea supporters are at, even though it sucks. And after every single game that we might draw or lose, it's as if the club's fallen apart. But at the same time, Chelsea Twitter is the place to go to in order to understand, generally, I think, where the fans are at the moment. And at the moment, we're sore, but I'm very positive. I don't know about you. I saw some decent football in our midweek match.
Yeah, I'm going to get onto that match right now. And I think the last thing I'll say is I think it's also, which accounts are level-headed. You kind of know which ones to follow to get a sort of an accurate read of what the general consensus is. You've always got those outliers who kind of are just they're inflammatory to get reactions, essentially get engagements. So they're kind of chasing clout rather than actually being
saying
truthful
anything
about the matter. But let's get on to the game. We actually had football for the first time in ages, it felt like. We haven't had, since the Zagreb game, but I mean, that's better left unsaid. We went to Stamford Bridge and we played Salzburg. What are your thoughts on the game?
It felt like a Thomas Tuchel game, except we were giving it, I'd say, like 80% more, just whatever the word is, more energy. In terms of the setup, the structure, I mean, it looked like it was the same. We played, I think I was messaging you. We were trying to figure out exactly what this formation was, but it seemed like a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3. I'm not really too sure. So not too dissimilar to Tuchel, but I felt like the team did really well. I thought that we had some really good patterns of play, some good little link ups, and just some really nice football. Unfortunately, again, Chelsea don't know how to score a goal or kick a ball into the back of a net, which is freaking me out. And I just don't know how it's going to change. Hopefully Potter can do it, and I'm sure he will. He'll get the time. But it's like the same old thing. We dominate the ball. We play really well. One or two mistakes, errors lead to goal, and we don't win the game. It's been our story for far too long. So generally, I was pretty happy, though. When I saw the football, I was like, this is good. This is a good sign. It seems like the guys are giving it everything, and intricate plays, some good patterns. I was pretty happy. And it seems like Potter's not going to stick with the back three from his what do you call it, his interviews. Seems like he's really happy to change it up, which is music to every Chelsea fan's ears, I'm pretty sure. I think a lot of us were just getting over that back three, the rigidness, which was a bit of the downside to Tuchel, unfortunately. He just stuck with it and didn't want to change. But I'm pretty sure Potter's going to mix that up. And I think I said it to you, I honestly think he went for experience in terms of his choice of team. He decided, just like Tuchel's first game, experienced players, get them on the pitch. Let's just get through this game. I think that was the plan. We basically nailed that plan because we should have got the win. Unfortunately, Silva had a really bad slide tackle. I don't know what happened there, and they scored. It's just unfortunate. Honestly, it's unfortunate. We played well. We did good. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there were some interesting talking points that came out of that game. I think, specifically with regards to their goal, the equalizer. It's Tuchel said it a while ago, and I think it still holds true in that we just seem to be getting punished for every mistake. A lot of teams can make mistakes. You don't immediately get punished. They might get into a good position and then fluff the chance. It seems like every time we make a mistake, it results in a goal against, and it's the only upside of that is it's a pattern that can't hold. But for now, it's been holding for too long. And I think you look at that pattern of play. We were so dominant. For most of the game, I think we had more than 2/3% possession, and they score from a breakaway where Sterling gives the ball away, Jorginho misses a tackle, and then Silva very uncharacteristically didn't even miss the tackle. It just kind of he slid in, kicked the ball. The ball happened to rebound off the guy's foot. So I mean, it's such fine margins for error there. It wasn't a great tackle. I'm not taking anything away from that in terms of Silva. Could have done better for sure, but it's just unlucky.
Yeah,
Sees the guy and starts tracking him, but then for some reason just stops tracking him at the most vital point. So there's 4 or 5 moments in that one piece of play where if any one of those moments was different, it stops the goal. And it's just mistake compounded by mistake, and then we pay the price for it. And in that instance, Kepa could have maybe even stuck a leg out instead of doing the collapse dive. Maybe that would have made a difference. Who knows? But the guy just happens to squeeze a shot off it and goes in. It's like it's unlucky. I guess you could say the same for our goal. I mean, their guy missed a crucial interception and got to Sterling. So I mean, at the same time, they got punished for a silly mistake as well. But it just seems to be a long-term pattern with us. In terms of the overall game, and we're talking about strategy and the setup and stuff. And I know that you and I were texting back the game, and one of the big problems is we just shoot. Just shoot. And I know that it's a thing that Potter has in the past. You talk to his players, they kind of say he is also the type of manager where he doesn't want you to just shoot randomly because you lose possession and you lose the ball, and he wants you to kind of increase your odds. But I'm like, at some point, you're getting into positions where you need to take the chance. and it just seems like our guys keep cutting back in or trying to do the absolute perfect goal every time, and it's just not going to come
Yeah.
off. So
Yeah.
my thought is we need to shoot more. We need to just get on the ball more, and at the end of the day, yeah, I don't know. If you're looking at formation as well, which I think is an important thing to look at, interesting choice at the back. What looked like in the beginning a back four turned out not to be, with
Yes.
Kukurea on the left back position. But against a team that is known for pressing and for fast breaks like Salzburg are, to have Silva and Aspi together made no
Totally.
sense to me. The only thing I can think of is, like you said, it was like you can't drop the captain for your first game. You kind of got to come in, like, show a little respect to the existing like hierarchy of things at the club, and play experience. I don't think it was the best solution. I know Koulibaly has been playing kind of well and then not so well, but like I said to you on text, man, when you're up against a team like Salzburg, you've got so much pace and attack. You needed someone like Fofana to kind of be covering for those counters.
Yeah, it's true. And Aspi, unfortunately, when you look at that goal that they scored, you said it, like, I don't know what he was doing. Like, he was well ahead of the player. The ball comes in, and that player outruns him from being behind him, completely outruns him, and gets to the ball first. Just unfortunate. Yeah, it makes no sense. But again, I think it will change. I don't think we're going to see that team. That's not going to be our starting team going forward
great
in any way.
I think
he's going to change it up.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also worth looking at like our attack. Aubameyang is not up to speed yet. He still needs to kind of seem like he can get some match fitness going. I think you've got Havertz who's not firing. He can't. Again in that game couldn't seem to put a pass together for love or money. And it's just at some point I think that Havertz needs to. I said to you, Havertz needs to just take a seat for a while. I like the guy. I think he's great. He's still world class. I think he's just having a bad patch. Bring in Broja. That you can see as soon as Broja comes in, the intensity ratchets up. He's like a good back to goal player. He's harrying the defenders, getting into good positions, making good runs off the ball. He's a good aerial threat. He's tall. I think it makes no sense to not bring him in. The guy, I think as soon as he gets a goal, he'll start flying. So
I think he will. Did you see his? Was it him that set up that counter? And I think Ziyech missed it right at the end, or he kicked it straight into the goalie. I'm pretty sure it was Broja. It was phenomenal. Just
pure that was
counter. It was great. It was so good.
Yeah, dude, I think that that was so unlucky for Ziyech not to stick that one away. I mean, the keeper had no idea. It was point blank. He just flung himself, happened to hit his top hand. So I mean, great save from the keeper, but unlucky from our perspective. But overall, I think it's nothing to be too proud of in terms of we still have that same old problem, not being able to create enough chances. But at the same time, definite positives to take forward. I think Potter now has like this mini break to kind of, hopefully, like we said last week, get some time with the players before the international break, and then work with the other players who aren't going away. And we'll see how it goes. I think Gallagher might benefit from the international break, just spending some more time with Potter, maybe get some extra one-on-ones with him and the team, and take it from there. So we'll see what happens after the international break, once he's had a lot of time with the players to be a bit more instilling some of his ideologies and whatnot into the team.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I'm pretty excited. That was just a game that we had to win. We put out a team. We had a plan. Unfortunate, as we said, Silva and Aspi a bit were to blame. And it happens that I think the hard thing now is we are bottom of our group, and we have a mountain to climb against a really good Milan team that we have to play. At home, we should do okay, but away, that's going to be tricky because we need to get as many points as we can now. It's a bit tough, but hey, if we drop into Europa League, we could win it for the third time. That's cool too. I really don't mind.
Yeah, No, look, Europa League wouldn't be the worst outcome. I think
No.
we need to aim to get at least 4 points on those 2 games against
Yeah.
Milan. So win at home, draw away would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't make it easy for
Um,
ourselves, though.
yeah, I think we've said enough about the Salzburg game. No, that's for sure. I think we can move on to maybe talking about Todd Burley, maybe some of the reactions to his comments that
Mm.
kind of blew up English media this last week.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's been equally vilified and praised from certain corners, from some of the comments he had to say. But I mean, equally, I think the big one that's kind of blown up, and I think you can talk to a bit more of it, is his idea for the All-Star game, which people are taking
Mm.
like he's implementing this thing. This is his big idea. It was a
It's a
throwaway
thought.
comment on stage when the guy was asking about how do you help support the football pyramid. He's like, hey, why don't we try this thing? It was a throwaway comment, and Oaks have gone ballistic.
Yep. Gary Neville,
What do you think?
especially. Oh, I think they are
Yeah,
all xenophobic and racist, and nah. I honestly, I do think there's a little bit of xenophobia in there. Or I don't know what it is, but as soon as there's like an American voice, it's like, oh, Americans can't understand football. Like they only understand soccer, as if they're two different sports. I'm like, no, like, sure, the guy's learning the ropes. He's getting into it. He only really knows baseball. I mean, that's his thing. But he's a sportsman and he's a businessman, and I think it's a great idea, especially like the heart behind it and what he's actually trying to do, to help the football pyramid in England. I'm like, yeah, good on him. It sounded like in the States it's raised tons of money, and his suggestion was to do the same thing in England. And Mr. Neville and Carragher, and I don't know if you saw Carragher's reaction on TV as well. It's just a bit embarrassing as well. I'm sorry. You actually look like a xenophobic, patriotic, like entitled Brit who just doesn't want to open up their mind to anything like progressive. So I don't know. It's honestly, I see it and I'm like, oh, great. It's the media just vilifying Chelsea once again, which I kind of love. I love Chelsea being the villains. Honestly, I'm like, it's good. Like, give me Diego Costa and all those players. Like, any day of the week. I love it. I don't want us ever to be the Liverpools that are put up as the golden boys of the Premier League. Like that just sucks. I don't want that. But it was just in bad taste. I'm like, come on, man. He's giving a thought. He's putting out a really good idea. Like just why don't you talk about the positives? It's just always the negatives with us guys. I'm sure if Ferguson had suggested it, would be the best idea in the world. Just let me put it like that.
Of course. I think the interesting thing that came out of, I don't know if you saw, you've got guys like Rio Ferdinand who, making comment about, oh, there's my wife in the background. Hello.
Oh, nice. Yay.
She loves Chelsea too. So, so you've got Rio Ferdinand making comment about, how ridiculous this whole thing is, and what about Americans coming in and they don't understand the English game. And then someone dug up a tweet of his from like 2011 where he's going, "Oh, just watching the MLB All-Star game. This is amazing. Why don't we look at doing this in England?" So, it's like these guys don't actually have an opinion. They have an opinion of what they think is going to make them look cool in the moment. They just kind of go with the tide, and I think it's ridiculous. So, you've kind of got like all these guys, like you say, like it's from an outsider's perspective, as we being international fans, we don't necessarily, I think, have the same like geographical link that a lot of these like English supporters and whatnot do, and fair enough. They can have whatever their opinion is. As international supporters, we're entitled to our opinion as well. And I think, like you say, it just really does come across as weirdly xenophobic. But it's like, it seems like anything that Boleyn says now, is ridiculous because he's American. You've obviously got
Yeah.
these guys who have previous, and it's Carragher and Neville leading the charge on this. They both have bad experiences with FSG owners and with the
Yeah.
Glazers, and so
The
they obviously
Glazers.
they're predisposed to hating Americans in that sense, or
Yeah.
American ownership, should I say? And they're talking about. I don't know if you saw that tweet. I think it was from Gary Neville about how American ownership is becoming a clear and present danger in the current English setup. And I tweeted from our account saying, I mean, you've got Saudi ownership of
Totally.
multiple clubs in the league,
Yeah.
who as a country have like actual human rights abuses, but
Yeah.
you don't talk about that. You talk about
Yeah.
American ownership being a danger because they might try to bring in some new, fresh ideas to what could be seen as a sport that is not necessarily stagnating, but it just is really stuck in their old ways of not wanting to be progressive or not wanting to try something new. And you get these guys who just kind of keep spouting that same rhetoric, and I don't think it's helpful in the long run.
I agree, and I'd say this, Gary Neville, if you're listening, you're a knob. Well, that's all I'll say.
He's definitely listening. He's one of our biggest fans. So.
Yes.
No, the funny thing is about Gary Neville is that generally, I don't mind his commentary, his punditry. He's always
Oh, I can't stand him.
seemed to be fairly like I don't know, partisan, I guess, in terms of being able to call out what's bad and being able to praise what's good. He obviously has his affinity to United, and why wouldn't he? I guess any player would. But I generally haven't hated his punditry. But I just find this one so strange from him, honestly.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think Boleyn now, as you said, I think he might be painted as a bit of a villain. So now he's going to have to walk a bit on eggshells. But seems like on the other side, he does some really great stuff. I've seen that he's trying to get some sort of meetings with all of the owners or the managers together, do like a dinner with them, and just try to create like this community and this, I guess, family dynamic to the league. I don't know how close those guys are in reality. But I was like, good on him, man. Like, new guy coming in, he's doing what he can. Like, that's good. Like, you have a new person who comes into your company to work for you. Like, you don't want the yes men. You want the guys who will suggest, who will be progressive, who will bring new ideas, who will think in ways that you haven't thought before in order to see your company go to new levels. Like, I don't get those comments, and hopefully it changes. Hopefully, what's going to happen? Like, they will forget about it. And then in a few years' time, it'll come back up. Somebody else will suggest it, and everybody will get on the bandwagon, and they'll forget that we suggested it first, and it's our thing. So
there we go. Chelsea are always at the forefront of trying to do something new and different, it seems. So, it's I think the thing is, what I find also quite strange is portraying Boleyn as this like bumbling like American idiot, and like. You kind of go like, this guy is a billionaire. You don't get to become a billionaire if you don't know what you're doing, first of all, unless it's daddy's money. But like, he's got that. He's also, it's not the fact, he's coming in fresh into football ownership, but the guy's not new to sports ownership. He understands the mechanics of how sports and sporting contracts and sponsorship deals and how all of those things work. Maybe he doesn't understand the exact specifics of how it works in football yet. But the guy's not an idiot. He's not coming in cold, as like a banker or something, going like, "Oh, I understand banking and now I'm in football." Like, the guy understands sports ownership. He's coming in with fresh ideas from a different context and going, "Let's see what works. Maybe it doesn't work. Cool, we don't try it." But I would rather have someone who's coming to the table going, "Hey, why don't we think about this?" Than have an owner who just doesn't care. Or who is silent and who has no ambition. I'd rather have a guy who's pushing the boundaries and getting flack for it than a guy who just sits there on his ass just waiting to get his money back. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just a bit of a silly reaction to a guy who is coming in with some fresh ideas. I think, personally. So. I don't understand it, but I think we can talk about another one of those big talking points that came out of that conference he was talking at, which was the idea of Chelsea emulating the City group or the Red Bull group and having multiple clubs affiliated officially in different regions. And I know we used to have that sort of like jokey Chelsea B in Vitesse Arnhem with we'd send all of our players there, and it wasn't like an official partnership. It was like this like unofficial partnership. There was no sense of ownership across the two, so you couldn't as Chelsea necessarily control and I know that's not always what you want. You don't want big clubs controlling how little clubs play, but in essence, for what you're trying to do when you're emulating those multiple club groups, you want to be able to have control, so that when you send out a player, say to whatever this club is that you now are affiliated to, and you can actually say, like, we're going to send you this player. He needs to have X amount of minutes. We need to be playing in this sort of a formation because the end goal is actually for the benefit of the mother club. And I know that is quite maybe an arrogant thing to say, as one of the few clubs in the world that could possibly even afford to do that. But what are your thoughts on this whole perspective, in essence, partner feeder club model?
I don't know like too much about it, to be honest. I know that, as you said, City and the Red Bull guys do it. From my understanding, so Julian Alvarez, that City have now signed, was he part of one of their feeder clubs?
That's my understanding. I might be wrong in that.
Okay, so it was. Because, I mean, on that level, it makes sense. And I think Alvarez is a perfect example. Like that guy, I'm sorry, I think he's going to be like world-class, like superstar. He's just come into the league, but I was watching a little bit of him before he came across to City, like just absolutely phenomenal. And I think it gives young guys who, and I guess with Chelsea, they struggle with this, like a clear path into the first team, or at least a clear path with potential to get into the first team, like a real opportunity to get in. Because you go out, you have enough game time, as you said, where if you're on loan, that's not always guaranteed. As we've seen with some of our players who have been our brightest stars, we think they're going to absolutely smash it. Like Billy Gilmore, a perfect example. I think Tuchel actually sent him to Daniel Fark, if I'm not mistaken, sent him there.
He did.
And he told him, like, this is a great coach. He is a great coach, like similar style, similar philosophy, like you're going to flourish under him. And then he just sat on the bench, didn't play well. Like it was just horrible for him. And I agree. If it's a feeder club, it is owned by a corporation or whatever you want to call it. It's their assets, so they'll do what's asked, basically, because they're owned by the same corporation. I don't know exactly how it works, but in that way it makes sense. I've seen that we want to scrap the loan army, which is not a bad thing. And I think it's a positive move. Like, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, honestly. I don't. I've seen City do it, and it seems like they do it really well. Alvarez being a perfect example for me. Because who knows, somebody else could have scouted him, but the fact that he plays for their feeder club means that he wants, I think, at some level, he knows it's a feeder club to City. So if I play for this club, I have the potential to play for City. It like increases your options for all these young players. They're like, I want to play for Chelsea. Okay, there's this feeder club. I join them, I'll get the game time, I can prove my worth, knowing that it's owned by the same owner, that they are watching every game, they are seeing everything that happens, they are highly, highly invested in it. It's not just a scout that visits every so often and watches a game here or there, but like they're heavily invested. So I think it's great with all our young players. Like, it's just what we need. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's a phenomenal model. I think that there's danger for people to say, oh, well, you kind of hoarding talent at some point, but who cares? I don't care. Good. I want Chelsea to succeed. I don't care about anybody else. They've had talks supposedly with there was all those big talks that we heard about with Boleyn and George Mendes, over the
Yeah.
summer, and they were talking about how they thought that mainly was about Ronaldo, and it probably was to some degree, but now it's sort of coming out that there's a lot of that was also George Mendes's ability to procure relationships with the Portuguese club. And there's talk of I think it's Vitória de Setúbal.
Sporting.
No, it'll never be one of the big boys.
No.
I think they said Vitória de Setúbal might be the option, or one of those clubs, and I think that's great. So
Yeah.
there's talk of potential for a Portuguese club, a potential for a Belgian club,
Awesome.
as the two European options, and there's talk of potentially maybe one of the Brazilian clubs, which I think is a great way to
Oh,
tap
yes.
into the South American talent. So the talk is
Yeah.
potentially South American club. If not a South American club, there was talks of doing some form of, not an ownership deal, but some form of like a formalized partnership with the Santos youth, which I think would be
Ooh.
incredible. I mean, you look at what Santos has produced over the last 2 decades or so. I mean, it's unbelievable. So if
Yeah.
you can get in there and into that South American talent stream, identify guys early, and then the beauty of the Portuguese and the Belgian clubs is because the rules for Brexit are so stringent at the moment, it's impossible to get young South American talent into your team,
Yeah.
whereas the rules are very different in Portugal and
Yes.
Belgium. So the requirements are a lot
That's
less.
clever.
So then you get the guy into the system early. Essentially, you get him into
Yeah.
one of those, potentially the Portuguese club, because they speak Portuguese in Brazil. It's an easy transition for them. It's not like you're
Yeah.
going to a whole new country with a whole new language and everything you got to learn. It'll feel very similar to South American and specifically Brazilian players going to Portugal. You get them into the system early. You get whatever the requirements are up, and then at some point, if they do make it, if they are good enough, if they're looking hot enough to be able to play, you bring them across to the Chelsea first team,
Yes,
or at
man.
least into the setup at Chelsea. So I think long term, it is so beneficial for our club to be able to identify players early, get them into a system where we are in control of their development, like we would be with a development squad, but in an actually competitive league.
Yeah.
Two, you're getting them to have the requirements necessary to get into the country if that isn't an option because of all the Brexit things. But also, over and above the ownership and thing, you get to then not dictate, but you kind of get to set up a model for how the organization as a whole plays. So you kind of have an overarching strategy for those things. So if Chelsea, let's say for instance, is a club who we have a certain identity, a certain style of play, a certain formation that we tend to use mostly. You implement that at those other clubs, get the guys used to playing in a certain system. If you've got this long-term plan, like it seems like Boleyn does with Potter, it just makes everything easier. It just greases those wheels in terms of getting players actually into the Chelsea system, and I think it can only be a good thing for us in the long run.
And that is what Chelsea have been sorely, sorely missing. I think when Roman came in, we had glimpses of that for like the first few years. Like, oh, this is, like this is the new Chelsea. This is like fresh identity. And then obviously Mourinho crashed. And then honestly, it was just patching up holes and winning trophies for the next 10 odd years, which has done us well. And it's been great. I wouldn't have it any other way. But I'm very much looking forward to that, where, as we can see with City, where I think they're streaks ahead of us, and probably the most well-run club in the world, I would say, at the moment.
100%.
They just have it down, and you see them like they get the players they want, they get the managers they want. There's never ever been some like crazy thing where everything's perfect, and then you wake up the next morning and then all of a sudden there's just some scandal here, some player breakdown, manager breakdown, like Chelsea's had for years. They just don't have that. It's stability, and you can see they're building something strong. I just pray that they never win the Champions League, and I'll be happy.
Dude, with the way that Haaland's scoring at the moment, I think they've got it in the bag. It's unreal. But I think you're right. I think you look at City's model and you go, they have a clear vision for what they want. They
Yeah.
have a clear understanding of what their system is. They have a clear scouting network across all of their,
Yeah.
existing clubs and obviously other clubs, and they know where the weaknesses are in the first team and who the best players are through data analysis and scouting networks to be able
Yeah.
to plug those gaps. Honestly, the only player that I can see in the last 5 years that City have actually bought and spent a decent amount of money on that hasn't worked well for them, and I mean, they've bought a lot of players, and almost all of
Yeah.
them are successful. The only player at the
Yeah.
moment still, and I mean, it could still
Mendy.
come good, is Grealish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, Mendy.
Besides Mendy.
Yeah, Mendy's gameplay wasn't great, but his personal life took a dive. But if
Yeah.
you're dropping 100 million on Grealish, and I
Yeah.
mean the guy isn't performing to City standards. But I mean, he's
No,
probably the only one I can think of when you go, their system didn't fail them, but he hasn't lived up to what their system usually produces. So
that's true. But I could have told you that, man. Grealish had terrible stats. If you're looking purely at output, like assists and goals, like he was shocking.
mm,
He was able to do a
mm.
little like
Yeah,
trick
he's just a
here and
flash
there and
player,
run down
man.
the wing, but that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. So I think in the long term, I think it's going to be good for us. I'm excited to see where
Yeah.
it goes. And I don't obviously understand a lot about MLB or baseball. I'm not going to try and speak into that. But from all the stuff that I've been hearing and reading about in terms of how Bowley's team, the Dodgers, have been set up, they apparently have done something very similar to this in terms of how they have set up like minor league teams and other teams that
Mm.
they kind of have a consistent like feeder network of players just in the system, just coming through. And I mean, I'm not sure. I think Alex Goldberg, who is, I think, more American or Canadian, I'm not sure of his actual nationality, but he was talking into, because seems to be a big MLB fan as well. And he, I don't think, supports the Dodgers, but was saying he's very jealous of their setup because it just
Mm.
seems like they always have good players coming through the system in a way that crucially is sustainable. It's not
Yeah.
this like fly by night, like hit and miss, like blah 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 blah. They've got a system that works for them in the long run. It's clearly been working for them for years, and so why not institute something like that in football and reap the benefits like a team like they are, but in a different sport.
Yeah. So I got a question for you then, Nick. When
Mm.
when you're looking at that, like, it's like big vision. I mean, we can see it. Like, it makes me excited. Like 5 years down the line to see where Chelsea could be if we implement all of this. With that in mind, do you think Potter is the right guy for all of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do have my reservations about him as that long term manager. I think it's still yet to be seen what he can do in the long run. I think we still, like, we're only one game in, as we know. It's still early doors to be able to
Yeah.
make any sort of call. And I mean, we've seen other managers come up from nothing almost, and if you look at the career trajectory of a guy like Tuchel, coming from a Mainz to Dortmund, and Dortmund were good, but they weren't like smashing the
Yeah.
league every year, obviously.
Yeah.
And then going to a PSG, and so some of these guys, that is their progression, and that potentially is Potter's
Yeah.
progression as well. He's going from a Europa League club in Sweden, to a team in the Premier League, which, let's be honest, is more difficult, I'd say, managing in the Premier League than it is potentially even managing a Dortmund team
Yeah.
in the Bundesliga. And
Yeah.
then getting them to overperform in a league that is incredibly difficult.
Oh,
So
for sure.
so Potter has something in him that has potential.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the man long term, if he's going to be able to win over the players with the big egos. Until he wins something, there's always going to be a question mark over his head as to whether or not he's the man. And I don't think he's going to do that this season. And I
Yeah.
think there's a potential for him to try to steal a cup next season. I don't think we'll be challenging for the league. I don't think we'll be challenging for, realistically, even if we get into the competition, I don't think we'll be challenging yet for Champions League again next season. But there's a potential with the squad, and if we keep bolstering it with one or two more signings in January and in the summer, we could aim for an FA Cup, or even if we drop out of the Champions League, aim for a Europa League or something. And until he gets one of those cups under his belt, I think there's going to be
Yeah.
question marks. But who knows? Who knows?
We're so positive here on the King's Road. Yeah. No
Always,
cups,
always. We got
no
to.
trophies for the next few years, guys.
Yeah. No, look, it's not what I want, but I think, it's like
Nah,
it's like
it's needed.
Chelsea have lived by the like win now, like die young
Yeah,
mentality. Like it's like slash and burn. You win
yeah,
immediately or you die. And I think that at some
yeah,
point that's going to stop being sustainable for us. And I think we're hitting that point now where you're seeing how
yeah.
well other clubs are being run, because we at one point were so far ahead of guys in terms of
Yes,
finances and teams and management and stuff, and other guys have caught up now. And I don't think that our model of like that we have done for the last 15, 20 years is actually going to be sustainable in the long run. I think that this is actually what we needed as a club. um, and if it takes a year or two of pain for 10 years of success, I think anybody would anybody who's not a plastic fan on Twitter would
yeah,
would actually look at that and go, yeah, I'll take 2 years of pain for 10 years of success. So
I
yeah.
agree.
Alrighty. Well, I think we've had a good conversation about where we're at, where we're going, and I think what would be cool and a little fun thing to finish on today, we saw has been going around, well, at least was going around Twitter at the beginning of the week, was everybody was posting their Chelsea best 11s of all time, and I think realistically we can only really do Chelsea best 11s of all time since we've been supporters, because it feels
Yes,
lame to go like, oh, I'll put Peter Osgood in my team. Like I never saw
that's
that guy play,
good. Zola.
so
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, Zola, damn it. Oh man.
Oh,
Oh no, he's not in my team. Oh,
oh
damn it.
dear.
Okay, I'm gonna have to drop out the one. I'll tell you. Okay. Do you want to go first?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll go first. Okay. So I'm going with a old school Jose Mourinho 4-2-3-1 formation, just so you know. And
Wow.
are we going to throw in our best manager? Well, it's Jose for me. It's probably the same for you.
Yeah,
Um,
has to be. Has to be.
it's got to be. Tuchel would have been that, but yeah. Anyway,
Mm.
okay. So
No, Jose
goalkeeper, it's
has to be.
got to be Petr Cech, and then we're going through the back line. So from right to left, I've got Reece James, then John Terry, then Thiago Silva, and then Ashley Cole. That's my
Mm-hmm.
backline, and geez, that is a phenomenal backline if they ever play together. And then in front of that, I've got N'Golo Kante and Michael Essien, one of my favorite players ever for Chelsea. And then my midfielders, I'm going for midfielders slash wingers. I've got Hazard and Robin on my wings because Robin was one of my favorite players too. I got Lampard
Yeah.
in there, and then leading the line is Mr. Didier Drogba. That is a team
Yeah.
that will win
Yeah.
everything, every single
Everything.
trophy possible, right there.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Okay. So I mean, I think that's the thing, right? So you look at historically Chelsea, and I mean, there's just certain positions where you can't not have certain players. There's that
Yeah,
spine down the middle that if you don't put them
Terry
in, you're a
Lampard.
joke. And yeah,
Yeah,
so our teams are going to look fairly similar. I've got one or two
yeah.
differences, and I
Oh,
think
okay.
it's potentially stylistic, but also just players that I just really connected with and just loved watching at the club.
Yeah,
So I'll do the same from the back. We've got the same, obviously, Petr Cech. You can't beat him. There's never
yeah,
been a keeper who has been better than him for Chelsea, and who had such
yeah,
longevity and won as much as he did, and also was as influential as he was in our
yeah.
Champions League run to our first ever Champions League trophy. You Ashley Cole never had a better left back, probably one of the best left backs in
Mm-hmm.
history, let alone one of the best left backs in Chelsea history. I mean, one of the best left backs in world football history, in my opinion. So how could you
And
leave him out?
the one defender that Cristiano Ronaldo said he's the hardest defender to come up against.
Absolutely. Obviously, you got to have your John Terry in there. That's a no-brainer. Also, I would say one of the best centre backs in history. Definitely one of the best Premier League
Mm-hmm.
centre backs of all time, and I would say one of the best captains of all time. And here's where we
Mm-hmm.
differ a little bit. I've actually paired him up.
Ooh,
I do love Silva. I think that I
okay,
just have this thing
Carvalho.
of like, if yeah, I'm going Carvalho.
Yet.
You have to go Carvalho, man. The Terry Carvalho partnership was
Yeah,
phenomenal. That was almost
it's
unstoppable.
true.
And you had Terry as the hard man, like put your face on the line, win everything. And then you had Carvalho as that like pacey, like ball playing center back who could break forward. There was such a good combination.
They
And
were.
then at right back. I've actually gone. I've gone Ivanovic. I just love
Hey, I thought so.
Ivanovic in his prime. Ivanovic in his
Oh, yeah.
prime was a force to be reckoned with, and I think by the end of his career, I think Reece James has the potential, because
Totally.
you've always seen players not live up to potentials, like your Dele Allis. Now you're watching the decline of Trent Alexander-Arnold. You
Yes.
you get these players who play well for 2 or 3 seasons, and everyone hypes them up, and then they drop off the map.
Yeah.
Ivanovic did it for 6-7 years with us, and I think that by the end of his career, Reece James has the potential to be our best ever right back. I really do think that, if he maintains his standards, and I really do believe that he will. For right now, I've got to go historically and go Ivanovic. Okay, midfield, hard not to put Kante in there. It's a toss up between Kante and Makelele, but I think that Kante brings even more than what Makelele did. I think Makelele was a master of his position, but Kante gives you everything that Makelele did and more, I think, which is a big call. But I mean, I think anybody in world football would be hard pressed to leave Kante out of an all-star team.
Yeah.
You've got your Lampard in there, my favorite player of all time, my hero.
What formation are you going for? 4-3-3-3.
And then 4-3-3.
What's your formation?
4-3-3.
4-3-3. Or 4-4-3, huh?
4-3-3,
as
yeah.
Buddy said.
Yeah, 4-4-3, as Boleyn apparently said.
Apparently, yeah.
Well, it's probably actually more of like a 4-1-2-3, actually, because you'd have Kante as the sitting DM,
holding midfield.
and then you'd have the and then I have two attacking midfielders in Lampard and, can you guess it?
Ballack,
dude. You know me too well, bro.
I knew it, bro. I just knew it.
I bloody love it. I love it.
Love a Ballack.
I bloody love a good Ballack. You've called all of my my ones. You called Carvalho. You called potentially called Ivanovic. You called Ballack. So those are my differences.
Yep.
And dude, okay, so my front three, obviously got to have Drogba spearheading the line. And you'd be hard pressed to leave Hazard out of any sort of conversation when it comes to our best ever wingers. And I for complete, and I actually want to kill myself because Zola was the reason I started supporting Chelsea. I loved Zola so much, and I completely forgot about him. I left him off my list. So I think that realistically,
Nick is very sorry.
I am very sorry, but I mean, realistically, he would be on my list. But I've got to stay faithful to what I wrote down. And do you know who I put on my other wing? Let's see if you get this one.
Okay, so
Mourinho days, early Mourinho days.
A left wing or right wing?
I think he was a left wing, if I'm not mistaken. I think he used to switch across. Damien Duff.
Duff. Called it.
Yeah, bro.
Man.
You know me too well. So
nice.
Yeah, I used to love Duff, dude. I love Damien Duff. I love watching him play. And he was epic. I saw, for some reason, whenever I picture him, and I think in that away kit with the two thick blue stripes. If you remember that, the white kit with the two thick blue stripes. So it was a good one, bro. That was like classic Chelsea back in the old day. I've got such good memories of that team, so I think I'm a bit biased in terms of my like historic picks. But but supporting a club like Chelsea, you could probably make 3 full starting 11s that are all like world class. So
if you're listening to this, let us know in the comments your best Chelsea starting 11. The rules are that it has to be within the time that you started watching Chelsea, right? That's what we did. Let us know in the comments.
When did you start? Actually, I don't even know. When did you actually start supporting?
I started supporting. I'm one of the typical plastic Chelsea fans that you would call a plastic Chelsea fan. It actually started. I went to my friend's house. I grew up never ever watching football. Like, it just wasn't a thing. I was way into cricket. And then I went to a friend's house in 8th grade, and his dad was a full-on Chelsea fan, like through and through. He was from England. And we sat on the couch because Chelsea were playing. Sat down, and the dad looked at me and he said, "What club do you support?" So I was like, "I don't watch." And then he said, "You support Chelsea now?" I was like, "Okay, cool, that's it." But I didn't really take it seriously. That was like 8th grade. And then that was before Roman came in and before Mourinho. And then the year that Mourinho came in and we got the Samsung deal, I got a Samsung phone, and open it up, and this thing was incredible, you know, because I'd gone from one of those block phones that had no color to this thing that just like was incredible. Open it up, and I saw Didier Drogba and Hernan Crespo in the
Oh,
background. That's how it
Crespo.
came loaded. Yeah, that's what the phone came loaded with. That was your background, and I was like, these guys just look so flippin' cool. And from there, I just started getting into football, and I was like, I think that old memory of my friend's dad, as well as my phone, I was like, Chelsea. And then that year, obviously, that was the year that we started dominating. So what is 04, 05? That's when we just started killing, and that was it, bro. That was my story. And before we end, bro, what was your story? I don't think I'd actually heard yours either.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, dude. Oh, I bloody love Crespo, dude. You know, my story actually started in '99. I started supporting in '99. I didn't, you know, it's like everybody was watching football, and I didn't have a club to support. Didn't really have an affiliation to anything in England that would give me a reason to. Like, I didn't have a grandfather who was from this area or whatever. So at the time, all I knew was I didn't want to support one of the popular teams. I didn't want to support a United, Liverpool, and Arsenal. I just didn't want to support one of those because I was like, I honestly didn't want to be seen as a plastic fan. Like, I was like, let's go for the guys just below that. And funnily enough, the two teams that were really doing quite well, that were like just underneath those top three, was Chelsea and Leeds. And and so, and at the time, I think that South African captain Lucas Radebe was still playing for Leeds, and so I was actually genuinely leaning a bit more towards Leeds as a choice. Thankfully, didn't do that, because that would have been a nightmare. But at the time, I was a bit undecided. Honestly, at the time, I preferred the color blue, so that was a big thing for me. I was still on the fence. Okay. Fast forward to, do you remember when maybe you don't, because if you only started watching a bit later, but back in '99, they used to show like some Champions League games on like ETV, if you remember
Yes,
ETV, they used to
do
tonight on E. And dude, so Chelsea were playing Barcelona, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this team, let me watch. And at the time, I had no idea of like where Chelsea sat in the pecking order, and I also had no idea of like how ridiculously good Barcelona were. I just thought like, oh, Spanish team. I didn't really have a concept of it. And I remember in that game we were playing at home at Stamford Bridge, and Zola scored this free kick from like outside the box. This like ridiculous, like long range top corner free kick. And I was like, who is this guy? He's incredible. I think Chelsea ended up going on to win that game 3-0, right, against Barcelona. At the time when Chelsea we weren't like a powerhouse. We were like just a team that was overperforming. And I remember specifically how mental the commentators were going. Like, this should not be happening. Like, Chelsea should not be winning 3-0 against Barcelona. And so I think that was the moment where I was like, who is this club? Like, who are these guys? Like, this is amazing. Like, these commentators are going nuts. This Zola guy is amazing. What a ridiculous free kick. So I think from that point onwards, it kind of settled me on Chelsea. And then the funny thing is, in the return leg at the Bernabeu, we got smashed like 4-0 or something. So
at Camp Nou, you mean?
Our dominance against Barcelona didn't last long in that season. But that was the moment, dude. It was that Zola free kick that actually settled it for me. So I can pinpoint it back to that very moment.
Wow. But how crazy is it? Like, just those stories, I'm like, those are going to change, because now City have come up the ranks. So I think in like 10 years time, we're actually, and there's always a joke about how they have no fans, because they don't really. But I mean, and we'll see in 10 years time, it's going to show. They've put their stake in the ground. Hopefully what we're starting to do now is, I think, where they are a few years ahead of us. And in 10 years time, I mean, I've met way more City fans in my life today than I ever have before, you know. They're starting to pop up everywhere. Maybe half of them supported Chelsea a few years ago. I don't know. But I'm like, you look at Newcastle, I'm like, I got a little kid, my little boy, 5 years old. If he gets into football, who knows? Hopefully he doesn't support Newcastle and they don't become the team. But it's interesting just to see how people get into it.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, half of parenting is making sure that your kids support your club, dude. It's like it's crucial.
It's true.
Got to make it happen.
It's
Like
true.
I love my son, but I will discontinue this family
Disown
relationship
him.
if he supports another club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, yeah.
No, I'm joking. But no, that's good. It's interesting. I'm kind of just wanting to get. I bought him like a Chelsea onesie when he was like a baby. I'm trying to
Oh,
get him like a
nice.
kit
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that he's got like photographic
Yes.
memories of him in the kit. So you've got to be able to be like,
Yes.
you can't support someone else. You've grown up in the kit, you know.
Totally, bro.
So that's
Let me
my
know if you
strategy.
find one. I want to get one too.
They're so expensive, dude. I think the only ones are at like
Jeez.
the actual Nike factory shop or like Sportsman's. It's like R1,000 for like a toddler's kit. It's like ridiculous. So I'm not there yet, but
No
yeah,
worries.
we'll see.
We'll see.
But maybe get one off Wish or something. I'll see if they've got any on Wish.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, Sean, I think that kind of brings us to a close for another episode, for episode 2 of the King's Road, looking at Chelsea Football Club. For now, to everybody who's watching this, anybody who will watch us in the future, thank you so much for joining us. And feel free to chat to us on Twitter. We are at the King's Road CFC. And we also make the show into a podcast. So if for some reason you happen to be watching this, but you'd prefer to listen to this in future, feel free to subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. And we'll see you again next week with some more updates on what's been happening in the world of Chelsea. I don't think there's going to be any games between now and then, potentially. We're not playing Champions League next week, I don't think. And
we have
but we'll
2-week
still
break.
have something to talk about. No, I think we only play again after the international break. So,
yeah.
Sean, thank you very much. Best of luck for the weekend, whatever that holds for you and your family.
Thanks, Nick. You too, man. It's good to chat.
Yeah, great to chat. And we'll see everybody again next week.
Cool. Cheers, bro.